Hi, everyone, and welcome to another special Insomnia Insight, or a Talking Insomnia episode, I should say, where Betul is here. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Anytime. But how do you pronounce your name, by the way?
Betul, just like you said
Betul,
it.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Very good. Well, so yeah, for those of you who don't know you, just tell us a little bit about how you found my channel.
Okay. So it was an interesting story, actually. I think I found your channel in January this year, so I think it was pretty late. And I have been struggling with insomnia for almost 2 years now. Well, my whole life actually, like on and off, but it was kind of, I'll explain that more later. But for 2 years, it was, like severe, I would say. And then I was, desperate like anyone else is. I was reading on Reddit, trying to kind of find a community to relate to. I went on Facebook and I joined these insomnia groups, where everyone was just, um, yeah, complaining, and I felt like it was good to begin with, but then I think it just really exacerbated my insomnia symptoms because I just saw that there was no way out. And they kind of came with supplements and take this, and I took a magnesium this at this time, and it worked, and I was trying to do all these things, and it just kind of created more pressure, and I was like, no, I'm leaving this group, and I don't want to. Yeah, I remember telling my friends I do not want to classify myself as an insomniac, because it was literally a group calling each other, I'm an insomniac, and they were kind of proud of it. And I was like, if I do this, then I'll just buy into that idea, and I'll just get worse. So I was quite desperate. Had plenty of days. I literally just broke down. I was like, this cannot be my life. How will I, do this and that and this and that? I want to be able to, have a family, this, whatever, plenty of things. And then I came across Martin. So Martin was the first one I came across, and I was like, wow, so someone actually understands me. And then I saw you, and I was like, oh my God, someone really understands me. So that's really how it started. I was watching. I remember that was in January, so I always filled my bathtub with water, and then I was just laying down and listening to your videos, and it was the best time. Like, it was a good idea to kind of spend my night, I guess. And it was so calming, and I felt so heard, because I think what we just need is to feel heard, and feel like people understand us, and that's really how I felt. So that's, yeah, pretty much how I came across your channel. I just found you through, I guess, Martin, because you were on you had a kind of interview with him, or like an insight or something with Martin, and then I found you that way.
Exactly. Very, very well. I'm so glad you did.
Yes.
And so let's talk about you shared a lot of very like things that so many people will relate to, I know. But you started, so you've always had a little trouble sleeping, but it was really kind of 2 years ago. So tell us
Yes.
what happened.
Okay, so I always had trouble sleeping, I guess, because I have, just like anyone else on this channel, I guess, is like we've had anxiety for so long, but it was never really debilitating in the past. So it was more like, oh, I'm anxious, but I sleep well. So I didn't really think of it. And I was always the one who couldn't fall asleep at, sleepovers. I couldn't, when we traveled with my family, I knew I wasn't gonna sleep properly, but I was always able to assign a cause to it. And I think that's why I didn't develop into something worse. So back then it was more like, of course I'm not going to sleep. I'm surrounded by so many people. So I'm expecting a bad night. So I think that's why it just didn't get worse, because I was confident in my ability to sleep when I get home. So that's how it kind of kept on going for, many years. And then I finally went to London, where I did my undergrad, and I slept like a baby. Like, throughout those 3 years, oh my God, I've never slept that well. And I just now know it's because there was no time pressure. You can get up at any time you want. Students always do all-nighters and stuff. So it was just amazing, amazing, no pressure at all. And then when I was about to start my master's, that's really when I felt like I had to, really grow up, and start waking up at a specific time, and this and that. So that was before starting master's, when I was kind of applying for master's and stuff. And I remember one morning waking up, and I was like, I didn't sleep. I didn't feel refreshed. When you're just like unconscious for a couple of hours, but you don't feel like you've slept. So that was the first night, and I have not felt that way before. So I was like, this is strange. And obviously now I know that it's because of, my stress about masters, and I need to get up at this time and that time, and my life needs to change 180. But back then I was like, I'm doing well. What's the problem? And then I thought it was a one-off. I was like, okay, I'm gonna sleep the next night. It's fine. And then the same happened the next night, and then the night after. So it just kept going. And from there, I remember that first morning waking up, and it's such a, I guess, traumatizing morning, because that's literally when everything started. So yeah, I think beginning of my master's, that's really when it started going downhill for me.
Absolutely. And I had a guest here. His name was Leighton. He was from the UK, by the way. He said that a lot of people trouble sleeping have almost like the insomnia birthday. Like that's exactly
Yes.
when start you can identify it. And what you shared is, I heard that so many times exactly. Like it was one night I hardly slept, and then I thought, well, that's a one-off. I'll probably sleep tomorrow night, and then you already have this kind of anticipation, this wondering, will
Yes.
it happen, not, and then things kind of escalate from there. But so then you had like a stretch of nights where like very little sleep happening. You're becoming more scared, and
So
what happens
scared.
next?
Next, my life just went downhill. I started, I remember coming home to Sweden, where my parents live, and I couldn't enjoy the summer. I couldn't sleep. So I was like, what's happening? I just can't meet people. I can't meet my friends. I'm barely sleeping. Started with all these, natural remedies like everyone's talking about. And I was like, this is going to work. My mom was super supportive in this. She was ordering melatonin and, natural remedies. And she was like, eat a banana, it will work. We really tried our best, because we thought it required problem solving, which is far from the truth. So we really tried to find the cure and the solution. Yeah, that's really when my journey with all these natural remedies started. And then when I actually started my master's, I got sleeping pills, because I was like, there's no way I'll get through my master's without any pills, which is false, by the way. And it just, yeah, I think I got very I developed tolerance towards the pills pretty early on, so they weren't effective, in the end. So I had to kind of stop with them, and yeah. What was your question, by the way?
Yeah,
I'm just
no,
remembering
absolutely. You
now.
you you answered it very well. It was just an overall question of like kind of what
Yeah.
happened next.
Mm.
And I hear this, like I get this picture, like your life is becoming kind of ever more consumed about like, why can't I sleep? What's going on?
Yeah.
And it sounds like you were able to do things during with your, like, you're still productive, but probably
Mm.
those thoughts were in the back of your mind a lot of the time, I'm guessing.
Yes, that's exactly how it was. I promised myself not to fall back, or fall behind on anything, even if I can't sleep. I was like, I'm going to be a normal student just like anyone else, and no one will ever see that I'm not being able to sleep. It was really hard to wake up every morning. I didn't remember the last time I woke up, feeling actually good, or when you wake up from a good sleep and you just stretch because you've slept
Yeah.
so well. I don't remember, it just became more of a sleep was a hassle. Sleep was something I just wanted to get over with, or the night. But I did do everything. I was very physically active, because I thought that was going to make me sleep. I saw friends, and I was just, I guess, depleted of energy. I didn't have any energy left, but I still wanted to be that normal person. So yeah, I did do everything while I was, not sleeping well.
And during this time, and I'm asking just this because when something that I've realized lately is that when people see this video, a lot of people will think like, oh well, Betul, she seems so well put together, she seems so calm, like she probably didn't really struggle like I do now. So I'm asking
Mhm.
this just so people can realize that you were in the same place that you are. So like
Absolutely.
how little did you sleep, or what were your nights like back then?
Daniel, it was I slept, when it was always unrestorative sleep, so non-restorative, but I don't remember just being up all night. It was never like that for me. So usually I do like close my eyes, but then I wake up, headache and like blurry eyes, all these symptoms. So I knew that I didn't sleep well. So it was very, I guess, light. And I think that was literally my nights. I never had a good night of sleep, just occasionally, and everyone really thought that I was put together, and that aggravated me so much because I was like, you do not know what I'm going through, kind of. And even my friend, my flatmate, she lived with me and she saw how much I was struggling. And then as soon as I, left the door, I just looked like a completely different person, put together and ready to take on the day. So she really got to see, both sides of me. And I think it was just because of the willingness not to kind of let insomnia take over my life. I refused. I didn't want that to happen. So yeah.
Absolutely. And now, if you don't really remember this is totally fine. But do you have an idea of how much do you think that you slept like on a night basis back then?
Okay, so let's say I went to sleep at like 12 and I would like wake up 6. So basically it would say 6 hours. And maybe according to like a polysomnogram or, a sleep study, or just objectively speaking, they would be like, yeah, you slept. But I think, we should really measure it subjectively. Like I just didn't feel good. So yeah, I was, unconscious for a couple of hours, but I don't consider that as deep restorative sleep. But I still, told myself, you've rested, your brain is rested now, so it's fine. Like I wasn't up doing all kinds of things, I was still laying down. So that's kind of how I made myself feel better, by telling myself you were actually, like you might not have slept super deeply, but something happened. So maybe that thought, like the fact that I held on to that thought, maybe that's what kept me going. I'm not sure.
Absolutely. So it was mainly like, you were kind of like more or less sleep from maybe midnight to 6, but it didn't feel like you slept. It was kind of superficial. You remember waking up a
Exactly.
lot of times like that.
Yes, that's really how it was. I can't really say that I was, I sometimes toss and turn, but that's not my main problem. My main problem was really like the non-restorative sleep. And that is now when I've learned, like, is hypervigilance and, all of that. So, but back then I had no idea. So I was definitely, out for a couple of hours, but it was never good sleep. So that was my main issue.
Yeah,
Yes.
totally. Yeah,
Mm.
no, I
Mm.
totally get the picture. And um and now, so you started your masters, and for those, I think it was for about 2 years, you said that. Did this pretty much like this was your life for 2 years, or was it kind of a lot of ups and downs, or what was it like?
It was definitely ups and downs because I think, your body just wants sleep at some point. So it was really this, after a couple of nights of really bad sleep. Actually, I'm going to tell you something really funny. Every time me and my best friend, Patricia, shout out to you, Patricia, you're the best. Uh, we were having like movie nights. And she knew about my struggle, and she really, sympathized with me. So what she would do, she would sit up straight in the bed so that she wouldn't fall asleep. And then I would lay on the pillow. And as soon as I started feeling my eyes closing, she would just turn off the laptop and let me go to bed, without saying anything. Because I was like, I cannot let my sleep leave me now that I feel sleepy. So we kind of had that, I told her, like, it's time. She's like, okay, close the laptop, go to bed. We'll talk tomorrow, kind of thing. So sometimes that happened. So, and that gave me hope. I was like, oh my God, I can sleep, I really can. And then yeah, and sometimes I remember having 1 week of good sleep, and I was like, what happened? What happened? I finally fixed it. And then I went back to, non-restorative sleep again. So it was definitely, on and off and up and down and, whatever. And it still is, but maybe we're going to come back to that later. But it's really the mindset that I want
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
have.
No, exactly. We're gonna go there, and if you had shared something there, it would have been fine too. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think we pretty much like we have a clear picture of what's happening, and I have some questions, but I think we'll just kind of keep the story going here. So, after about 2 years of this struggle here, that's when you discovered Martin Reed's channel, my channel, and what started happening then? What happened next?
Yeah, so I started. I was about to start a CBT-I with the, the healthcare and UK NHS, and I was on the wish list, waiting
Wait,
list
wait, yeah.
for for a long time. And I mean, when you're suffering from insomnia, like one night of bad sleep is one night too much, right? So I couldn't wait, and it was taking months and months and months, and I was like, I cannot like function this way. So I signed up for Martin's insomnia, like CBT-I, um, and it was very, very helpful in the beginning because it really deprived me from sleep, and I think that's why I went to sleep, eventually. And what I liked about Martin's course also was that he did challenge some thoughts, and sometimes I did have a question and I asked him, and he was like, this is how it is. For instance, I was thinking a lot about my red eyes from a bad night, and he was like, you probably have red eyes on a good night too. You're not thinking about it. So I was like, okay. And, but then I feel like traditional CBT-I is trying to imitate something so natural. And it's, for instance, with this thing of having to wake up and get up out of bed every time you feel like you're not, able to fall asleep. That's something that should come naturally to you. That's something I used to do when I slept well, that I got out of bed when I didn't feel like I could sleep. Or that's something I see my mom, my sister, my dad do whenever they can't sleep. It's something natural. It's something that shouldn't have to happen by force. And I feel like a lot of things with CBT-I are so forced, and it's kind of taking away all the naturalness that really comes with you sleeping well. I think, yeah, so I think there's a lot of practical steps, but we should more be thinking about the brain. So I didn't think it was really working for me, and I didn't finish it. So I just literally disappeared from the course. Unfortunately, I was fed up. I was fed up. So I was like, but Martin was amazing, super good, super responsive. It just didn't work for me. And that what was your question, by the way? Now
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
really
absolutely. It's kind of just a general, like, what happened next. So you're just telling the
yes.
story, yeah.
Yeah, and then I came obviously across your channel, and I think so. What really changed my mind about the whole thing was all your interviews with different people, especially Michelle. Oh my God, Michelle really. Oh my God, she was talking about that, the jerks and the twitching and all of that. I've experienced it all. I still experience it, but now it's the radical acceptance. I'm accepting it, and yeah. So I really started challenging my mind, like because I've been functioning pretty well, and I've been doing all these things while not sleeping. So why can't I just remove those negative thoughts and still keep on going? And honestly, Daniel, I don't remember the last time I felt like when you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I slept so well, and then you go back to sleep. That has happened to me so many times since I came across your channel. And that's something I don't like about CBT-I either, is that it deprives you of those nice moments with sleep. Sometimes where you want to sleep in, for instance, and you like getting up, let's say at 7, and then you want to close your eyes again and wake up at 9. That's fine. That's what I see normal people do. My sister, she can wake up 6 one morning, wake up 9 the next. It's fine. It's fine. So I think what CBT-I is, depriving you of is just the good relationship with sleep. You want to stretch in bed, you want to drag in bed, you want to have all those feelings, and you're not allowed to because you need to get up at this time and you need to go to bed at that time. Um, so yeah, and then I started really experiencing, when watching your videos, I started experiencing those stretchings in the mornings, and falling back to sleep, and being on my phone watching fun videos until I actually fall asleep. It was amazing. It just changed so many things, and I'm finally looking forward to going to bed, regardless of if I'm going to get non-restorative sleep or good sleep. It doesn't matter. I love the time I spend in bed before, and that's it.
Love it. So
Yes.
glad to hear this. Super glad to hear this. And I've heard this so many times too. Exactly what you describe about how, like, there are good things about CBT-I, which is kind of like you learn about sleep, and sometimes that having kind of like some structure can take you from a place where you're kind of completely bewildered. There's completely
Yeah.
chaos to like some structure, but then again, there's so much
Mm.
rigidity in the teaching that can make you, yeah, can be very challenging. And
Absolutely.
I'm so glad that started tuning in and you saw this freedom started happening, kind of like, oh, there's
Yes.
nothing to worry about. I understand it. I don't need, like, it's wonderful to hear, really.
Yes, even I had a nap the other day, and I haven't napped in 2 years, and that was my first nap, and I napped for 2 hours, and I was so happy, and it didn't affect my night, the following night, it didn't affect it, and yeah, it was just so amazing. So I've experienced, yeah, I love sleep now. Even yeah, that's it.
Super glad hearing this. And there's a lot of things we can learn from. But actually, just so I don't forget this one, it's going back to like before, like you started your master's and all that. Actually, before you moved to England, even since you were a child, you were that person in your family, maybe in your circle of friends, who were like maybe a little bit more type A personality, maybe a little bit
Yes,
more kind of like high energy, like something like that. Um, and when there was something different, a trip, a sleepover, you slept less, etc.
yes.
But it sounded like you didn't think that was strange. So it sounds to me like overall, there wasn't really much struggle. It didn't bother you too much back then. Is that true?
No. That's very true. Didn't bother me at all. At all. I just saw those nights as like a one-off. It's gonna get better. And it did get better. It was because I always had explanations for my bad nights. And I think when I didn't have any explanations anymore, that's when it really started. Like,
Exactly.
yeah. But back then it was like, oh, of course, like, there's plenty of people in the room. How am I supposed to have a good night's sleep? Pretty much. So it was always like these really, I guess, legit explanations to it. So, yeah, it never really snowballed into anything worse.
Yeah, exactly. And I just kind of want to point that out, that I don't think that's strange. I mean, you say you said here, like, I always had an explanation, and I say I agree with you. It is totally legit. Like, there's nothing strange about that. So there was no
Mhm.
struggle. It makes total sense. And I'm just pointing that out for anyone out there who kind of feels like, why can't I sleep when I'm going to go on a trip? Well, it's
Yeah.
totally legit, so to speak. Totally.
Yeah, it is legit,
Right?
100%.
But then let me ask you this one. Now it makes me curious. Those 3 years during your first year in UK, um, there was kind of like no rules. Everybody was doing whatever. There was no pressure whatsoever. During that time, did you still have kind of like, when there was something going on, you did have a little struggle, or even that was gone during those 3 years?
That was gone, 100%. It was in the nights I couldn't sleep well. I just got out of bed, naturally. No one told me to, no one forced me to. I was like, okay, I can't sleep. Of course, I'll get out of bed and do something fun. And I think people who, good sleepers, they already kind of know how to befriend wakefulness, because it's just like, of course, I can't sleep. I'll get up. So I did that until I felt, sleepy, and I went back to bed. So that was kind of what happened. And that's why it just never got worse, because it just came naturally to me, right? And there were nights I slept one hour. I was like, totally fine. I'll just, that's fine. So I never really thought anything of it until I started seeing, it was like a continuous thing at the end. So that's when it really started becoming a problem for me.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I think, again, pointing out for anyone tuning in here, that I think you're absolutely right. It was that time when it seemed like, wait a minute, I didn't sleep much. I feel unrefreshed for
Mm.
no reason. Wait a minute.
Yes,
And then in retrospect, there was an obvious reason, actually. It was just like a little hard to see that,
absolutely.
right?
Yes, now I can easily, say it was the stress about masters, it was the stress about the move and everything. It changed. Like, 3 years in a place where I felt like home, and suddenly I'm just leaving that place to another. It was a huge thing. And back then I was like, no, of course I'm not going through anything. Why am I not sleeping? But now it really does make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Now, I want to ask you this one, which I was really curious about. So, when, during this period of struggle, you had this mindset of like, I'm not going to let this take over my life. I'm still going to do everything I want to do and enjoy doing,
Mm.
which often is very helpful, because the more you kind of like start to like, I'm not going to go out with friends, I'm not going to take trips, then your life becomes really, really narrow and small, and like insomnia becomes
Right.
everything. So it can help in that regard. But then on the flip side, like, it can almost be like you're living this double life where people don't know anything about you. So
Yes.
can you speak to that kind of pros and cons, and like,
Yes. Yes. I think you feel so lonely, and especially it's so triggering when you're in that situation and you see that people are talking nicely about sleep, and they're talking about, like, come sleep over at mine. I'm like, no, thanks. Like, I can stay until late, but I won't stay, past this time. So it was, definitely, I felt like I was living double lives. Absolutely. Coming home, and, my best friend was there, and she just saw how, like, there was no energy left. I think it's really useful to do things and, obviously continue with your life. But in the back of my head, I always thought about insomnia. It never left my mind. And that's why it was still, going on. Um, Even if I try to live a normal life, I was constantly thinking about insomnia. I was constantly thinking about how, to find the solution, how to find the cure. So it was, I definitely did the right things in theory, but I was still thinking about insomnia constantly. And that's something I'm not doing today, which is why it's helped me so much. Um, so yeah, it was definitely the thought that was still there. And it's that thought that you need to work on. I mean, it's I think there was, I don't remember his name, but it's not the insomnia itself that is the issue. It's more of the mental torture it puts you through, and it was really the mental torture for me. It was, yeah, my body was physically tired sometimes. That's fine, a headache here and there, totally fine. It was the what ifs, the what's gonna happen next? Am I gonna be able to do this and that, and family and partner and la 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 la, all those things, they were tiring, not the insomnia itself. So yeah, if I answer your question,
No,
because I seem to be
absolutely.
talking.
And
Yeah.
I think we should go back to what you just said, because there's so much that I think will really help to talk about that. But kind of just to finish off on the kind of the double life
Mm,
topic there, the way I see it is that for anyone who hears this and says, and sort of thinks that, okay, I'm going to fake it till I make it,
yeah.
that's not going to work, because like it's always going to be there in the mind. Even if you pretend to do everything like everybody else, you can't
Yes.
fake it till you make it. But on the same token, like, I think it was probably helpful for you not to stop doing things, because you could have gone sort of even deeper down the rabbit hole. Does that make sense?
Yes. Absolutely. And that's why I am so confident. And, even if I have a bad night, I know it will not affect my day after. And I think that's what it really helped me with. I know that I'll be able to complete everything on my to-do list, regardless if I sleep well or not. So that, I can always use that period as a reference to, I could still do things. I still had meetings, important meetings, presentations and all of that. And without, like, with minimal sleep. So it's a good reference, and it's really comforting knowing that you can still do all these things. And that's why, absolutely, you do things, but definitely do work on your mindset about it as well. Yeah.
100%. And
Mm.
let me ask you this one. Now, it had been gone for 2 years, and you actually had like ample evidence that you could actually do fine even on little sleep.
Yeah.
What was there kind of a moment when you sort of just had that insight, like, wait a minute, why am I trying so hard to get more sleep or better sleep when I can actually do fine without it? Was there kind of a moment like that, or how did you come to see it that way?
I think there were many moments like that, actually, where, and it was up and down all the time. Some days I was like, you know what, I didn't sleep, but I feel great, and that's how my life is going to be like now. And there were other days I was like, no, I just want to be able to kind of just stretch in bed and be comfortable in bed and not dread it. So it was really like, I knew I could do without it. I knew it, and I would say that I have a healthy lifestyle, overall. So I would consider myself pretty healthy, but reading all these articles about, especially now that I'm doing sleep research, about dementia and all these things that you can develop with lack of sleep, which is obviously not the case. And yes, I think that really exacerbated my symptoms even more, and made me even more worried, because I did come to terms with it at some point. I was like, you know what, this is fine. But I think even coming to terms with it might be detrimental, because then you start identifying with it in a way.
Yeah.
So because I was like, yeah, I'm an insomniac, and that's how my life's gonna be. Like, it's fine, it's fine, So I think, yeah, there's a fine line between, you know.
I
So
told I think the way I hear this is kind of like, there were times where you were like, I can do fine if I don't sleep well, and that might have
mm,
been helpful for you for a stretch of time, but there were still
mm,
these missing pieces to the puzzle, right? This not
yes.
quite understanding everything that was going on, and that just kept the struggle going.
Absolutely. It
Um,
was it was the sleep education. I didn't have the sleep education back then. So, but the sleep education really, really helped me because now I see it as a problem, but as something that shouldn't be, that should be solved with time and that should come naturally to you. Back then, I didn't have the sleep education. I just assumed that that was going to be my life, and I started to come to terms with it. But now I know that my life doesn't need to look that way, and I can, take active steps to you know, hopefully one, period in my life sleep well again. But yeah, it was definitely the sleep education that made a lot of difference. 100%.
100%.
Mm.
And the next question I have for you is the one about like, you had all these what ifs, like
Yes.
what if nothing changes? What if it becomes even worse? What if this happens? What if I don't sleep at all? Blah, 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 blah. And
Yeah.
I just want to add one thing for everyone that's tuning in here. And this is kind of like a teaching from Clear Weeks, who says that so many people who have what she calls, back and then she calls it like the nerves, which is basically what we call anxiety. Like for someone who has the nerves, a big fear is like, what if it gets even worse? And it's the thing that's so unfortunate there is that the person often doesn't see that it is already as worse as it will ever get. Like it
Right.
actually won't get any worse. You're already at the worst. And when you see that, oh, it doesn't get worse than this, then kind of like, oh, there is no other, like there is no catastrophe happening. Like this is already the worst. That can really help.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But so I was just sneaking that one in there. But on your end, like for you, all these what ifs so often drive the insomnia, just like it did for you. What do you think kind of made it change there?
I think just first of all having a great support system and you know people who see me at my worst, so like see me at days I haven't slept and they still appreciate me and love me and because I'm still being myself. So I think the support system and also just always using your past as your reference, like knowing that you were able to do this and that, and although you were on minimal sleep, it's definitely using good bad nights with good days as a reference pretty much. And I think I think it also depends on your spirituality maybe, but spirituality plays a big role in my life and how I view things. And um, I would probably just say it's maybe this this has a meaning, maybe this has a purpose as well. And I think you made a tweet the other day about like insomnia can make you basically realize and have awakenings or something. I don't know. It was, do you remember? Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's really what happened to me because during the period I was really struggling, that's when I realized so many things about myself. And when I really went from like a place where I barely knew myself to, my authentic self. And that was during that period because insomnia made me feel like, okay, there are some things I need to target, in my life that I haven't really thought about before. So I've told my friends this. I'm so grateful that I did go through that because I wouldn't have been who I am today, for instance.
yeah,
So definitely, taking the positives out of that as well. Mm.
100%. And it's when people hear the word like spirituality or spiritual journey or something like that, that can mean
Mm.
different things to different people. But much to large degree to me, it means kind of like a spiritual journey to me sort of means like a journey within, learning about yourself, and
Yes,
so it's actually something spiritual can be something that's actually very practical, not this kind of woo woo thing that people often
absolutely,
but
absolutely.
to go back to what you said, like this is actually something I'm going to talk much more about on the channel here, but now I'm going to take a little side trip here, so bear with me, but because I feel like I can share this. But up until recently, I've seen it as kind of like, somebody has trouble sleeping and they find my channel, and that's great because I can help this person sleep, leave kind of the struggle with sleep. But then, so in the past year, as my teaching has changed a lot, so many people have said like, "Oh my gosh, this changed my life. Like I see my whole life in a different way now." And then
Yep.
that made me think like, maybe we should, like, as part of like my teaching, my like NATO and all that, like maybe that should just be always be sort of the goal, if you will, that not only look at like, oh, this person has trouble sleeping and I get a chance to help them sleep better, but oh, this
Mhm.
person has trouble sleeping, wow, great. Now we have an opportunity to really
Yes.
learn about ourselves and change everything, something like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because that's really what happened to me. I changed every single thing in my life because of my trouble sleeping. If I had slept well up until today, I would probably still be that person I was 2 years ago, for instance, very clueless and not thinking straight and, a young girl, I would say. So I definitely, took advantage of that period. And I was like, if I'm suffering from insomnia, there must be a deeper rooted cause of this, and it might not be beneficial for everyone because it can be very painful, to go back in the past and ask questions. I don't think you don't need to do that in order to overcome your insomnia, and I just want to put that out there as well. But it could be very useful too, that you can go back, ask questions, understand yourself better, and come out a better person. And I don't think many people have that opportunity unless something like this happens, where you feel like your life is breaking, for instance.
And we're going kind of like into like some really deep territory here, but
Yeah,
I think it's
we
helpful.
should
And
call it psychology instead.
right. But I think I think this, for anyone who's tuning in here, like, I know for a lot of people what I'm about to say is going to sound like, Daniel, you're crazy. How can you even say that? But when you start looking things in this way, it's almost like the period you're having now with the struggle with insomnia, it's almost like it can almost be a gift. It can
Yes.
be the thing that makes you go inside, learn about yourself, and when we start seeing things like that, it's like it's this great mind shift. It's like, oh, whenever somebody has struggle sleeping, it's like we can really use this. And I'm as you can see, I'm just starting to explore
Yeah.
these thoughts,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely where things are going.
Absolutely. I remember telling my friend, maybe this is a gift, maybe I'm blessed with this. So we could always, look at it from two different perspectives. Absolutely. Mm.
Wow. Okay, so all this happened, and I felt there was maybe something more I want to ask, but not really. I think like, just to share kind of where things are now, the way I see it is like you know you're not necessarily like completely left all the struggle behind, but basically it seems like you're in a place of like a lot of peace of mind and a lot of understanding.
Yes.
Where are things now, you say?
I mean, I just recently started really like sleeping well because obviously when I first came across your channel, then we need to start learning and telling our brain. So it is like a little bit of a process, to actually come to that stage. And I think I'm definitely in a much better place because of, like, I know we're all capable of sleeping. It's something so natural that should not be forced. So knowing that if if my family can sleep, why should I not be able to? Pretty much, if my family can be up at 4 and not worry about it, I should do the same, and not really be that strict or hard on myself. And I think it's just acceptance and. I have much, I sleep much better now. I love sleep. Sometimes I don't, but I'm like, okay, that's fine. I can still function. I can still, yeah, it's just, it really doesn't bother me as much anymore. I guess now because there are some stressful things happening in my life now, I might be overly stressed, which is obviously very understandable. So yeah, I think now it's just, I'm just living life without worrying about insomnia constantly. And yeah, I'm just able to detach from that and live life, meet up with friends, wake up early if I need to, wake up late if I don't need to, it's just like taking my days as they come pretty much. Yeah.
Love hearing this, like music to my ears, really.
Yeah.
And so I think, yeah, we'll leave it there. So glad you came on, Betul, and just stay in touch. And again, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay.